If you like superhero movies, you should know that there are two factions, the Marvel faction and the DC faction. Now if you talk about statistic, Marvel is clearly won the competition by miles away. Just think about it, in the last 10 years you got this, and on the other end you got something like this, and this. You might think there's no competition really because Marvel is clearly better at making movies, but not really. I'm not here to say one is better than the other, but here's the thing. We all know when a DC movie is made right, it's not just your regular vanilla superhero movie where the hero beats the supervillain and there's your happy ending. But superhero movies can be so much more than that. Superhero movies can also be filled with drama and conflict that can be easily solved by just beating the bad guys. Even though there's only 1 in 10 DC superhero movies that is actually able to deliver a conflict that's good enough for us to even care about. Recently, DC just returned with its newest movie, a film that managed to make DC superhero once again respected. That movie was The Batman. A hero we all know is just a regular human being without any superpowers who fights crime within the dark night of the Gotham City. And this time, the Batman just got a standalone reboot with a whole new cast and a whole new storyline. Played by Robert Pattinson as the Dark Knight himself, the Batman is ready to accompany you for 3 hours long. So long that you have to look for an article about the right time to go to the toilet. It's that long. But don't worry about holding that pee and wasting 3 hours of your life watching this movie, because this is the Batman movie that we all been waiting for since the Dark Knight trilogy. It's all started with this. This is Gotham. A grim and hopeless concrete city full of crime and corruption deep beneath the roots of the city, from a corrupt government to a violent street gang. With the weather worse than the UK, Gotham is always raining, the sky is always cloudy, plus the light bulb in the city is somehow dimmer than Alpha Edison's first prototype. With such a strong evil side, it takes a good side to balance that out. This is where the presence of our not-so-friendly neighborhood Batman is needed, a man who is trying to turn the city into a decent place to live. In my opinion, the Batman arguably has the best and most atmospheric cinematic interpretation of the Gotham City by far. With everything in it, you can easily see why the city needs Batman. Some people say this movie is very similar to David Fincher's film 7, and I can definitely see why. Both of this movie has a dark aesthetic and a psychopath serial killer to catch. Back in 1989, Tim Burton points out that Batman can be an eerie and haunting spectacle. With Michael Keaton as the Batman himself, 1989's Batman was the first Batman film that defined how Batman movies looks in this modern era. 2 decades later, Christopher Nolan proved that Batman could also raise a political and contemporary themed stories with the Dark Knight trilogy. And then, Zack Snyder brought Batman into an apocalyptic film with Batman vs Superman. And this time around, the Batman, directed and co-written by Matt Reeves, bring all of those to the next level. Behind the success of the Batman, there are also some negative things that cannot be missed. Some people say that this is not a superhero movie, but a simple, gloomy mystery story about a serial killer with one of the detectives dressed as a bat. The Batman is an installment of the depicted superhero that managed to give a fresh take. But atmosphere and plot are dark and heavy. This may not be the kind of movie for those who lean more towards the Marvel Disney fanfare. It's quite possible the Batman might be too dark and disturbing for some viewers, but I thought it was pretty terrific. The Batman is both too dark and not noir enough. And you can't deny that it's not just the story that is dark, but the color grading itself, it's so dark that it's almost black and white. Other than that, villains like the Riddler, who played by Paul Dano, are not so flamboyant character with bowler hat and a bright green suit like Jim Carrey in the Batman Forever, but rather a psychopath with glasses and a raincoat. This makes us feel like seeing a Saw movie rather than a Batman movie. And don't forget that he's also a social media influencer, guys. And the Penguin, who played by Colin Farrell, hasn't adopted his typical fashion style of monocle, tall hat, and an umbrella. Instead, he looks more like an Al Capone than a supervillain. Meanwhile, Catwoman, who played by Zoe Kravitz, a tough barmaid with a side job as a robber, is by no means a temptress, far from what Michelle Pfeiffer and Anne Hathaway have portrayed in previous Batman movies.
Handsome, dazed, and to die for.
However, the Batman is still impressive in his own way. Reeves and his team have created their own distinctive and stylish version of the gloomy and sad Batman. It's a good thing they committed to this thing for 3 hours long. While other superhero blockbusters feature aliens threatening to destroy the Earth and everything in it, the Batman offers semi-noir adventure fantasy by showing weakness and loneliness of the superhero himself. I mean, how often did you see a superhero has an existential crisis that you can actually relate to? Not someone who wants to stop become a superhero just because of some city that fall from the sky. This movie is not about serial killer. It's not about Batman fighting mafia either. But this movie just wanted to show how Batman tries to defend a city that doesn't even like or respect him. But after all of those serial murder and what feels like countless of symbols and riddles to solve, everyone is starting to realize that they need Batman's presence. They began to realize that the Batman spotlight was not just a symbol of evil fought with vengeance, but something deeper than that. It symbolized the hope of a Gotham City.